Brutal news. Caleb Wilson out indefinitely with a fracture in his left hand. This is the therapy session to end all therapy sessions.
This is Tyler Zeller, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Thursday afternoon, February 12th, 2026. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Network, the #1 sports podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen or watch. Special shout out to all our everydayers, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and our insiders as well. You guys, oh man, crushing news for the Tar Heels on Thursday afternoon. Caleb Wilson suffered a fracture Tuesday night at Miami. We're going to unpack it. We're going to talk about it, potential timelines, all of that stuff. Jump in, drop your comments in, and we'll see if we need to get to any of that as we continue on here. Let me start by just reading the statement from North Carolina about this, and then we'll get into my thoughts and other things about it. The North Carolina release says, University of North Carolina freshman forward Caleb Wilson is out with a fracture in his left hand, an injury he suffered in the first half of Tuesday's game at Miami. X-rays taken during the game were negative. That's a critical timeline point that we will talk about as we go here. X-rays taken during the game were negative, and he returned to play later in the second half versus the Hurricanes. But additional imaging done in Chapel Hill revealed the fracture. The evaluation process is ongoing to determine the timetable for Wilson's return. And then it says some more about all his stats and everything he's doing for the Tar Heels this year. So I think the immediate thing here is the response. There is no way to get around it. This is an absolutely crushing blow for the Tar Heels. This lowers the ceiling in a massive way. The Tar Heels will be worse. There is just no one on this roster. There are barely any players around America that raise to Caleb Wilson's level of capability. A crushing blow for the Tar Heels. He is out here doing literally historic things for a freshman at North Carolina, better than Tyler Hansbrough, better than anyone. He currently has, the Carolina freshman records for all sorts of stuff. It's just, you cannot replace a player of this caliber. And so it's devastating. I mean, I've got text upon text upon text already from people saying, season's cooked, it's over, it's done. What do we do now? I think that might be too far in the wrong direction, because Carolina still has a lot to play for, a lot ahead of them, and a lot of rated players. But obviously, when you look at it, it's tough. I checked in with Tyler Zeller about this. You might remember he suffered an injury his freshman season, ultimately came back. His was obviously a longer injury, but kind of knows how to deal with this. He was unable to jump on, but here's what he said back to me. He said, quote, I know I hate it for him. It's a really tough situation. I don't have much wisdom because my injury was such a long one, and when I came back, I was in such a small role. Caleb would be coming back as the man that we try to work through. It is a really hard situation, as he won't have a lot of time to get a rhythm, but he will be expected to carry the load. The shorter the time period, the better at this point. If he could get back by the ACC tournament, we at least can have a game or two to get him settled before the super important games start. I know Tyler said he didn't have much wisdom, but I thought there was a lot of wisdom in there. For one, when you look at that, Carolina, their offense works around Caleb. He is the focus, the center point. He initiates things, he rebounds and rips and runs, all of that, right? And there's nobody else on this roster that can do it at the level that Caleb can. And so you've got to find somebody else, other ways to play defensively, offensively, all of that, because you just can't operate in the same way that you could with Caleb. You can't rely on him for those crazy buckets, all of it. I mean, it's just, he is one of one, and that's that. And the other thing, as Tyler said, is if and when Caleb gets back, and we'll make some speculations about that here in a minute, he's got to get worked back in. And that's another difficult thing. Carolina will have been playing differently. They'd have to figure out how to reincorporate Caleb and what that looks like and how to go about it in that regard. And so the shorter the time period, the more time he has to work back in, and Carolina has to work him back in. And so there you go. Since we've alluded to it already a couple times, let's go ahead and look at timetables. Obviously, the break happened on Tuesday. One of the things, at least from what Carolina has told us right now, is we don't know specifically what bone in his left hand. It could be a pinky. It could be something in the main palm of his hand, wherever it is, we don't know. And that probably depends on the timetable as well. And so we're going to have to keep an eye out for any more information on that. I think the fact that they didn't even notice it in real time, right? Again, as the Carolina media response said, they couldn't even reveal it in the initial x-rays in the arena, and it wasn't discovered until they got back to Chapel Hill. That, if I'm reading into that, that says that it's not the worst break in the world, and that would tend me to believe that it's a shorter recovery time. That's just all pure speculation on my point, right? But I'm trying to read some tea leaves there. Let's say, gosh, I mean, I can't imagine this being any shorter than 2 to 3 weeks. Let's say if it's 4 weeks. If it's 4 weeks from when the injury happened, Tuesday night, that would be February 17, 24, March 3, March 10th. That March 10th, that Tuesday, is the Tuesday of ACC tournament week. If it went to a 5th week, that would be Tuesday in between Selection Sunday and the first Thursday of the tournament. If it goes to 6 weeks, that would be leading into the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. So there is not much time here, you guys. There are 3 weeks left in the regular season, and that's it. That's the problem with this injury happening. I mean, you never want an injury to happen now, but this is terrible timing for it. And so from a timetable, again, Carolina didn't give us one, but speculating, I feel like 4 weeks is probably a good average to think about, and that would get you back into play for the ACC tournament. Knowing Caleb, knowing his thirst for the game, his lust for life, all of that kind of stuff, you would imagine there might even come a point where he'd say, I don't care, just get me in. Like, that's the kind of kid he is. But man, that's a lot to deal with. I just hope, as I'm saying it like crushes me to have to say, I just hope that we have not seen the last of Caleb Wilson in a North Carolina Tar Heels uniform. There is a world where that's a reality that we might have to reckon with, either because Carolina is done by the time he would get back, or because they just decide like it's best to shut it down, which is a possibility as well for this. Oh man. So there's that. As you think back to Tuesday and when it happened, Shelby Swanson on Twitter had said, from her understanding, from some spokespeople at Carolina, that it happened. There was that 4-point play. Caleb fouled a 3-point shooter, and they both kind of fell down. And it was as he was going down to brace his fall. Let me see if I can find. Shelby says, a UNC spokesperson tells me this play late in the first half, in which Caleb Wilson closed out on a 3-pointer and both hit the hardwood, caused the injury. And so, man, we'll see about that. And so that's the timeline for it. So as a reminder of how things played out on Tuesday, because this really is important here, is it happened. He continued to play. He eventually went to the locker room, got it x-rayed. X-rays were negative, as the response said from Carolina. He comes back out and he plays the second half. They go back to Chapel Hill, and only then, doing more imaging, do they realize what's actually happened. And so what we need to do is talk more about the Hubert Davis response that he had the other day, because it was odd, but obviously he didn't have the information. So I want to unpack that a little more, talk about it. I want to talk about who's going to start in Caleb's place, who's got to step up. And I want to look at how the Seth Trimble injury might help as they process things as well. We'll get to all of that and more coming up in just a second.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot. celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Dawn Staley and South Carolina remain on top of the SEC standings after handing Tennessee their worst defeat in program history with a final score of 93-40. In the 43-point win, South Carolina shot 69% from the field. Tessa Johnson had a perfect shooting night, scoring 24 points, shooting 4 for 4 from the floor, including 2 threes, and made all 4 of her free throws. And UCLA remains undefeated in Big Ten play, topping Michigan 69-66 as Player of the Year contender Lauren Betts put up a double-double, scoring 16 points, collecting 16 rebounds, and adding 5 assists and 3 blocks. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Okay, there was the issue on Tuesday night where in the post-game press conference, our guy R.L. Bynum asked Coach Davis what the situation was with Caleb's hand. Coach Davis kind of cut him off and said, hey, there is no situation. And then R.L. says, it was heavily wrapped. Did that impair his ability when he taped that? Coach Davis just said, not to my knowledge. There was a lot of frustration over that because clearly we all saw there was some sort of situation. And I've just gone around in my head a lot about this week, especially now that this news comes out. And so I think there's going to be even more weeping and gnashing of teeth. But as a reminder, Coach Davis didn't know what we know now because they didn't find out about that till they went back to Chapel Hill, right? So there is that side of things, that issue. I think where the frustration comes in for a lot of people is even though Coach legitimately didn't know, he could have chosen his words differently or more carefully. Instead of saying there's no situation, perhaps something in the vein of, I'm honestly not sure what the situation is. I've had all these responsibilities. I was focused on the game. I haven't been apprised yet of fully what's going on. And even if he had been, it would have been, hey, the x-rays were negative. He's good to go back in and play, right? And so there's nothing there. So I think the issue is not that he was withholding information. There was no information to withhold. That part is very, very true. I think the frustration was just in his handling of the words. But to be fair to Coach Davis, let's also say he, as any of us would have been, was livid and mad and upset because the team just played poorly. And so I think that's why the response was what it was, if I could be honest about it. Okay, obviously we next need to look at what is this going to mean for the Tar Heels going forward? Who's going to play? Who's going to step up? All of that. There are 7 games remaining in the regular season for North Carolina. As a reminder, obviously Saturday they host Pitt. That's the good news. This first game after this news is your easiest on paper remaining game. You're at home. You're against a Pitt team that has lost 10 of their last 12 games. Pitt is not playing well at all. The problem is that after that, Tuesday, you go to NC State. After that, you go to Syracuse. Then you host Louisville on a quick turnaround from Saturday to Monday. Then you host Virginia Tech. Then you host Clemson. Then you go to Duke to end the regular season. This is a crazy difficult closing stretch of the season. Our guy Brian Ives had just posted this on Twitter as we've been chatting here. North Carolina has outscored ACC opponents by just 2 points in 78 minutes with Caleb Wilson on the bench this season. That is against the 10th toughest ACC schedule to this point. The Tar Heels have the 4th toughest overall remaining schedule in the ACC. Things about to get a lot more different, and that's crushing. Now, let's play silver lining with it, right? Because we need to do that. This is an opportunity for everyone else to step up. When you say, Isaac, who's going to step up in Caleb's place? My answer to you is it's got to be everyone, because there is no one Tar Heel who can 1-for-1 replace Caleb or do any of the thing, the vast majority of what he's doing. So it means Henry is going to have to take on more of a role in the front court there. It means Seth is going to have to step up his playmaking and capability. It means Derek Dixon is going to have to take more steps forward. Everybody. But in terms of who specifically replaces Caleb in the starting lineup, I think it's clear and obvious that it's got to be Jaron Stevenson, right? Like that's the answer there. I don't even know who else doing to put in the starting lineup. And so that's the answer for me is Jaron. As for Jaren, right, there's the defensive capability. He is a junior, so he's got the years. He is not the offensive player that Caleb is remotely close. I think there's nobody would even begin to suggest that as a possibility. What Jaren's going to have to do is not try to be anything he's not. That would make things worse. Got to come in and be Jaren. He's got to come in and just continue to operate the way he has. What's going to be incumbent upon the coaching staff is to figure out, are there different ways we need to play? Are there things we need to do to be, different than we had been? Because you can't play through Caleb now because Caleb's not out there to play through. So who do you play through? Is it Henry? Is it more of a team approach? Carolina is already really strong in assist percentage. They assist on 60% of their made baskets, just shy of, I guess I should say. And so there's possibilities there to be able to play a more balanced thing than you already do. But good grief, if you're NC State, you're licking your chops now because it's like, who do we fear? Because if Caleb Wilson is on this roster, you fear him, and then everyone else is in a supporting role. But now with Caleb out, it's like, all right, we're going to key on Henry Vasar. We're not going to let him beat us. Hey, we're going to do this to Seth. We're not going to let him beat us. And then we don't have to worry about Caleb Wilson being the other guy that could, you know what I mean? And so there's all of that as well. And then in terms of depth behind Jaren coming into the starting lineup, which again, I'm assuming that's who it'll be, Zayden High is probably got to be that guy. I don't know what else you do other than go really, really small and play like a Jonathan Powell at the 4, play a Luka at the 4. I just don't know what else you would do there. And so I think Zayden will see extended minutes. Man, he's going to have to settle in and step up in big ways along with Jaren. Sheesh, man, it's tough. Kyan Evans is going to have to be better, right? Because it doesn't affect just the front court. It affects the back court too, because everybody probably has to shift up if you're going to go small. And so that's part of the reality of this that we've got to look at and reckon with as well. Man, so much. I also wonder, this is a team that's already been through an injury this season to a starter, right? We remember that Seth Trimble had the broken arm, missed 9 games from the game after Kansas. I think his first game back, if I remember correctly, was Ohio State. That's the thing you got to reckon with is, what did we learn while Seth was out that could help us now? How could Seth himself say, fellas, here's what I learned while I was out that can help us now? How can Seth help Caleb with processing this, right? Remember, Caleb is 19 years old. This has got to be, he's more devastated than anyone else when it comes to this. And so how can Seth's experience this year help Caleb process what it means for him? Also, are there things Caleb will learn while he's going to be on the shelf now watching? What can he see about the Tar Heels that he could impact and bring to the table as he eventually works, hopefully, his way back in? All of that is stuff to think about and process as well. And that brings me to thinking about this. I think there's going to be a lot of people that you'll see on social media, talking heads, that are going to suggest that Caleb Wilson should just shut it down at this point. No. Caleb is not going to want to shut it down. Even if someone suggested that to him, he would, if he's the Caleb Wilson that we all think we know, he would laugh at that and say, no, the second I can be back, the second I'm cleared, I'm back and playing for this team. There are also people who will probably suggest that this is going to hurt Caleb Wilson's draft stock. That is laughable. This will not hurt Caleb Wilson's draft stock. If it was like, oh man, Caleb ruptured both ACLs and broke his back, and we're not sure if he's ever going to walk again, that would hurt his draft stock. But a fracture in his hand, in his non-shooting hand, that keeps him out for, a couple weeks, no, that's not going to hurt his draft stock at all. So anybody you hear saying that, just dismiss that, because that's not a thing. Now he's going to have to come back and prove who he is and how things are going. But I think NBA front offices want to see the adversity. How do you respond to a moment like this? How do you come back? That's what they're watching for, not can you keep your hand unbroken. And so Caleb will be just fine in terms of draft stock. You think about postseason awards, right? Caleb is clearly right now second in line for ACC Player of the Year. He's an All ACC first team All ACC player, but he's only played just north of half of the ACC games. Carolina's played 11. They've got 7 more to go. I wonder how this injury will affect voting for things like that, similar to Darren Peterson with Kansas, right? Like, yeah, he's phenomenal when he plays, but he's barely played half the season. And that could be a big bummer for Caleb too. Obviously, this also affects all of the stats and numbers that we have expected him to do in terms of continuing to score a bunch of 20-point games and double doubles and all that. Like, just all that's gone and forgotten now. I mean, obviously he is where he is, but in terms of counting stats, it's not going to get any better. And that's just, I just hate it for him, right? Obviously we're all bummed for us as people that love to get to watch him play, but for Caleb, for his family, man, this sucks. You hate it. It's his one season in college. He's not going to get this back. And that's another thing to shut down anybody who might say, oh, you think Caleb comes back now since no, Caleb is not going to come back to college. That would be silly. Again, he is a lottery pick, a surefire lottery pick. He will not be back at Chapel Hill next year, even with this news. All right, you guys, I know there's a lot of comments. I'd love to see if you've got any questions or observations about this, and we'll do all that coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about TurboTax. Look, tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person, or you can connect with them online. They're going to handle everything for you, from W-2s to self-employment forms, and then they work to get you every single deduction they can. Then you upload your documents, you go about your day, and you're going to get updates right in your TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it for you. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. You just got to file by February 28th. So take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, you guys, let's get over to the chat and see what you guys have for us here. Let's get right into it. A lot of people, this is funny. John Martin, you win the day. Rumor is he got caught up in a court storming. Woof. That's direct shot across the bow at John Shire. Very well there. T-Man, our guy T-Man, what's up? So, is the season just over? We have the 4th toughest remaining schedule in the ACC. I'll tell you this, T-Man and others, my hope with Caleb healthy was that Carolina could go 5-2 down the stretch. Even that is not desirable. Like 6-1 would have been better, but gosh, it's such a tough schedule. And that's why, again, I'm a broken record with this, but hear me say it again. That's why you can't lose those California games. Miami is a really good team. SMU is a good team. Those games are understandable, but when you lose to Cal and Stanford, that makes this even more a problem. So is the season over? No. It's going to feel that way, though, T-Man and everyone else thinking that, because now 4-3, I think, is what you shoot for in these final 7 games. I just don't see, with what Carolina has remaining, I don't see the ability to get your way to a 4 seed. I don't see, and I mean that in the NCAA tournament, I don't see the ability to get past Duke, Clemson, Virginia, NC State, Miami, all those teams that are Louisville, all those teams that are ahead of Carolina in the standings right now. Not that Carolina can't win the games, but remember, the Tar Heels have played they've got 7 games remaining. There's 31. So that means they've played 24 games. Carolina has played 24 games with the offense centered around and focused around Caleb Wilson. And now you got to completely alter that. And there is no offensive player that has what he has. That's tough. So the season's not over. but we need to adjust our expectations. My hope is that Carolina can hang on to a 6 or 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. My hope is that Carolina can be a 8 seed in the ACC tournament, at least still getting a single bye, right? Like they should be able to do that because there's lots of other teams that still have to play each other and deal with that. But man, it is therapy indeed. I appreciate this. This is from Funky Trooster, who says UVA's Jakari White had a similar injury this season. I remember that. He had been out and was just getting back when Carolina played in Charlottesville. And Funky says to his non-shooting hand and came back relatively quickly with a brace. He was their leading scorer last night, still wearing it. Man, that's a great point, Funky. Like with this guy being left-handed, being right-handed in the injury to his left hand, like if he's able to wear some sort of stabilizing thing, I can't even think of the word. I'm like stabilizing brace. Let's just use Funky Trooster's word. Then that puts him incapable. What you don't want to do is put Caleb in a situation where he's going to do long-term damage to himself or make it much worse. Because let's be honest, we all want to see Carolina be in the best spot they possibly can. We want Carolina to win as many games as possible and to have Caleb back for that. But there's something like his health, his longevity is infinitely more important than Carolina winning basketball games. And I say that as someone who has lived and died with this program for the majority of my life. Humanity comes in, and that's most important. But to Funky's truth here, man, if he could be back and it's going to be an okay thing to play with a brace or something, let's do it. Let's make that happen for sure. Okay. Melinda, it's good to see our friend Melinda. Melinda Dolphin says, how unlucky is it to have 2 bone breaks in starters in one season? I'm wondering how this compares to past seasons. I mean, there are certainly other seasons where Carolina has suffered more injuries and has just been so depleted. But man, to have it happen like this is so kind of wild and tough to deal with for sure. So a lot to process. Here's a funny comment. Jack Porter says, bring Harrison Ingram back now, right? With everything going on that you've got to deal with. Yeah. Like, and with all the jokes with the NCAA, of course, though, now they've denied Charles Bediako. So there's no way an NBA player, I know Jack's just joking here, but, man, that's a real world thing. If the NCAA keeps going the way it is, that it's be like, all right, mid-season, who could we go grab because we just lost somebody in that regard? Here's a question that I want to ask myself that I just thought of. I wish somebody asked this in the chat so I can credit you. Who is going to be Carolina's leading scorer the rest of the way? My gut is to say Henry. I think you play through him more than you already did. I think you sit Henry down and talk about, like, here's what we got to do. If it's not Henry, maybe Seth, but I think it's got to be Henry. Like, that's clear and obvious. Is the thing. Dylan Hosford asks, is there any chance he'd be back by Syracuse? No, I don't think there's a hope of that. Like, literally, I don't see him back for the regular season unless it's a brace situation like we were talking about, in which case maybe. And so at the very, and again, this is all total speculation. The very earliest I could see any hope here is Duke at the end of the regular season. But even that, I think, is a long shot. My hope would be ACC tournament. If I had to put a guess on it today in real time as we get the news, that's what I'd be looking for. Because again, as Tyler Zeller said, as we talked about earlier, you hope you can get him back for some games before the most mattering games of all, which is the NCAA tournament. And then who knows, right? Like, you get Caleb back and he's ready to go, you could be in good shape at that point. All right, you guys, bummer news this afternoon. This hurts. A season that, yes, while it's had its ups and downs, had a lot of promise, a lot of potential, a lot of capability. The ceiling is now lower, but we still got games to play. How can Carolina circle the wagons and continue to work towards winning and together and playing for one another, right? Play smart, play hard, play together. That's Carolina basketball. We'll see how they can do it when they get back to the court on Saturday against Pitt. Now, Coach Rob and I, kind of unfortunate timing. Literally, we had just recorded Friday's episode. I get off and I look at Twitter and I see this post from Carolina about Caleb's injury. So Coach Rob and I talk. We have our show, our Pitt preview, and all that. But obviously now I'm going to have to record something to insert in there about Caleb's injury and paying attention to that. So that is certainly a thing. But make sure you check out the Friday show. We will be live after the game Saturday. And man, hopefully Carolina, they should be able to still pull this off really well. Pitt's not good at all. And so that's part of it. You guys, appreciate you tuning in with me here on a Thursday afternoon in real time. If you haven't subscribed to the show on video and audio, do it right now so you don't miss a second of Locked on Tar Heels. If you haven't joined our brand new Everydayers Club, we'd love to see you there. If you haven't hopped in with the Locked on Tar Heels Discord, that link is in the show notes as well. Come on in, be with us. We'll talk again tomorrow. Again, myself, Coach Rob, would love to see you there, and we'll be live Saturday after the game. But for now, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. It's a sad day to be a Tar Heel, but it's a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk tomorrow, but until then, peace.